Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to our new town hall for August 8th. It's episode 93. It's a pleasure to have you here. My name is John Kranz, and let's bring on Bill and Billy. Well, I actually do something on my other monitor, guys. So go ahead and say hello because I've got to do something really quickly while you're doing that.
No, I thought we're having guests tonight.
Oh, we are. We are having guests, but we always start with the important people, which is you.
Well, not me, but yeah, we're having guests, so it's exciting.
Yeah, we're excited to have guests.
Something different.
Something different. We're gonna shake it up a little bit. So I want to welcome everybody. Hope everybody's having good weather right now. I'm getting mixed reports. I think East Coast is getting hit pretty hard right now. But yeah, speaking of special guests, let's introduce Ty Bomba to the set. Ty, great to have you here with Bill and Billy. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here. Good evening.
Thanks for all you do for Paper Wars. And my understanding is we're going to talk a little bit about Paper Wars today. So I thought I will bring up just real quickly for everybody to know what we're talking about. We're going to go ahead and bring this on stage. So can you walk us through, Ty, what you're going to introduce here, our upcoming Paper Wars issue release that's going to be coming pretty soon?
Yes, the end of the month, I understand. It's a what-if game, Operation Isabella. It will be a new topic to many people out there. Mm-hmm. It covers, a few people know that in August 1942, the Germans came within a card's throw of invading Spain. And this has only been covered in the hobby. I believe there was a scenario in one of the GW Europa games and an old 3W game from the early 80s, none of which were really based on the historical reality of the time. And the thing is, there was immense tension in the Franco regime as the war got going. For instance, when Barbarossa began, they put out a call for 18,000 volunteers to form the Spanish Blue Division. Within 3 days, they had something like 8 times that number of people came forward because there was very, very deep anti-communist sentiment in Spain, because it was only Stalin's intervention in it that had made the Civil War last so long and be so bloody. So there was plenty of people in Spain looking for revenge. And so there was a faction within Franco's Falangist party to join the Axis and really get into that war. Whereas the rest of the junta, they were basically monarchists. They were not fascists. They had only acknowledged Franco as leader of the junta because Hitler said he would not send aid to a committee. And so he forced them to adopt the Führer principle, that is, rule by one man, and he picked Franco. And so there was this tension between the Carlists and the fascist Phalangists, and this was coming to a head. The general who was in charge of the Spanish Blue Division in Russia, which was up at Army Group North, really impressed the people in Army Group North, and Hitler met him, and he liked a guy named Munoz Grandes. And he said, if you'll send me and my division back to Spain, he says, we'll march on Madrid. And the plan was basically they would arrest Franco and just make him a figurehead, and then they would bring Spain into the war. And he said, at most, you're going to need to send a few divisions in to back my play. And Hitler said, well, let's wait till we capture Leningrad this fall. And then, because that'll make the division really famous, and that'll give you more cachet. Well, of course, they never launched that attack because the Russians knew what was coming. They kept avoiding it. But anyway, Grandes said, let's just go ahead and do it anyway. But Hitler, on September 8th, the Sixth Army broke into Stalingrad, and Hitler became totally transfixed with the events on the Volga.
Yep. That's for sure.
Now, what people don't realize here is if the Germans had done this, the Rundstedt was asked to draw up a plan, Operation Isabella, and he estimated it would take 10 divisions. In other words, the 10 divisions that the Germans ended up historically sending to Tunisia and flushing down the drain could have been sent. They planned to supply it out of Bordeaux. The Vichy French part of the border was not going to be involved. And so they were going to come out of, they would have entered Spain through the northern edge. They're up in the Basque country. And had they done so, they would have put the Anglo-Allied entry back into Europe, set it back by about a year. Because with the Germans rolling into Spain, the Allies would have had to intervene there simply in order to prevent the Luftwaffe and the Kriegsmarine from seizing a whole bunch of excellent aero-naval bases from which they could have really prosecuted the war in the Atlantic. And so, in other words, Operation Torch would have been canceled inescapably, and the Allies would have had to land there. So you get this real wild and woolly campaign. The Allies come ashore with the forces that historically they had a quarter year later for Torch, and the Germans come in with 5th Panzer Army. And the Allied player can really shape the game at the beginning, because if he lands on the North Coast, he's immediately in a battle with 5th Panzer Army that basically looks the ferocity of the Kursk operation minus the fortifications. Or if he lands down in the southwest, that secures Gibraltar, but then it's a long slog to get to Madrid. And the idea is you want to get to Madrid, because if they get to Madrid, they can claim the reestablishment of the Republic and start recruiting Spanish on the Allied side and everything. So
yeah.
So
Are there options? Are there options for the approach for the player?
Oh yeah, the Allies, they have total sea superiority, so they can land anywhere from the North Coast down to Portugal. They can bring Portugal into the war. That's another thing people don't realize. The Portuguese offered to enter the war on the Allied side. Their alliance with the English goes back to 1386.
Yeah, way back. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, way back.
The British General Staff said, no, let's keep them neutral, because they've only got 35,000 troops, and if we bring them in, Spain will immediately invade, and they can probably do us more good as a neutral. But in this altered situation, they've got 4 divisions, and so it's an option. And Gibraltar plays a big role in the game. And like I said, the big prize is Madrid, because whoever gets to Madrid can then declare their own republic. And the hallmark of the game is savage combat action and whip snake maneuver, which, as everyone here knows, is the hallmark of my design approach.
Yeah.
As is known both here in Christendom and as far east as Cathay and Sacred Nippon. So that's the whole summary of the game there.
I'm glad. Well, I'm glad this is recorded. That's probably the best 5-minute education on an operation that never happened that I've ever received. If the historical article is half as good as what you just
it's quite lengthy. It's very detailed, because I knew that people were missing the background. And this is one of those cases where, like, if you go to the article on Wikipedia, it's bad. It's very.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's not. Yeah, what you presented was awesome. So we talked about your article. So you have your historical article. Can you walk us through the contents?
Right. We have another jam-packed issue, Desert Blitzkrieg, by the designer. This is a solitaire game, which I didn't know. I played an instrument. He designed it 40 years ago as a solitaire game. He submitted it to us at 3W.
Yeah, he was part of the old, was it Axis and Allies he did way back in the day or something like that?
Yeah, it's a
Nova Games.
Designed solitaire game. And the trouble was, when we gave it to it, we had sort of a corporate team of playtesters, and everybody at the time was like, oh, a game you can only play solitaire? Who likes that? And so they all gave it a thumbs down. And so in the article, the designer actually saved the rejection letter, which I sent him at the time. And I said, I really like this game, but, we go by the playtester says. So here it is 40 years later, and I'm now instrumental in helping to bring it on. And then we have another game on how I became a developer of Jack Green's new Jutland game, which anything Jack Green does on Jutland, you want to get in on it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a update, big update to his Fleet Admiral game. That's sort of somewhat of a collector's item.
The next thing is kind of a little bit awkward. When I arranged for half the counter sheet to be taken up with new chits for Contact Now, the game was supposed to be out by now. Well, after we sent the counters to the printer, it turns out Contact Now won't appear till early next year. Right. So, this will work.
A sneak peek. There's something to hold on to.
Yeah,
Shit to hold on to, just to get everybody excited.
Exactly. And then there's an article on an optional variant system for the air units in Third World War, which would be wildly popular. Now, in this issue, we've only got P&P counters. However, a few issues later, when I had the space, I've arranged to have the die cutter.
Great. So they'll be mounted later. That's wonderful.
Right. So there again, in a few issues, that'll iron itself out.
Okay. And then how long? So your historical article runs about 3 pages, maybe?
4, I guess.
4 pages. Yeah. Okay.
So I mean, you'll get and plus I put a lot of design notes in the rules.
Oh, okay. And the rules themselves, right? Makes sense.
Between the design notes and the article, you will have all your questions answered. Then we got a designer deep dive on Mons 1914. And then here's the big article. Danny Parker gives us 11 pages on
nice.
Last Gamble. That was another game back at when we were working on a 3W in the first edition. We referred to it as Poulter's Last Gamble. Because he had invested so much money in his production that if it didn't sell, he'd go bankrupt. So.
It was a big game even then.
It was. So
back in the day.
I think the interesting thing about it as a bulge game is Danny really gives a lot of attention to the air war and the potentials going on in the skies over, plus all those little teeny weeny super armor units that the Germans had.
Yeah.
And then
we got some final
updates from you and Julie.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. If you could share next 5 minutes, maybe go through. I'm gonna show the map first
Sure.
for Operation Isabella. So maybe you can walk us through. Obviously, Madrid's going to be key here.
It's 20 miles per hex.
20 miles per hex.
And the Germans come in when I first show this, and every Spaniard who sees it says, "Oh, all the border's missing." If you look there in the east edge, down there at the bottom, the border is missing deliberately because Vichy France, over toward the right, toward the east there, Vichy France was at this point a pro-Axis neutral, and so they're not into this. The Germans, if you can scroll up toward the top more,
yep. There it is.
More, okay.
There.
That's where the Germans were coming in out of Bayonne up there.
Okay.
And the Vichy, they did not want to bring Vichy France into this whatsoever and complicate it. So the Germans are coming in up there.
Gotcha.
And so, like I said, now if you can scroll back out so I can show the whole coastline. The Allies, because of their naval superiority, can invade anywhere along the north coast.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so you can pick your spot. Like, and you said the more direct route was what, southern?
You can land down in the south and come in at Gibraltar, which is there by the Straits of Gibraltar, to your left with your right there is Gibraltar. They can come in there, and that gives them a very secure logistical base because it's the Germans have to go very far. It's at the opposite end of the map from where the Germans are coming in. But then, like I said, the big prize is Madrid for political reasons. And so then you've got a long slog. The historical analog there is when they landed in Torch, the British very much wanted to land close enough to Tunisia so that they could beat German reinforcements into Tunisia. But the Americans are very skeptical about going into the Mediterranean while Spain was still a neutral and possibly coming in. So the analog here again is if you take the safe invasion route and you land at Gibraltar, there's no way the Germans are going to get there and counterattack in a quick time. But then you've got a big slog to get to the center of the map where Madrid lies. Or you can land up on the north coast or in Portugal, but then the Germans are going to be on top of you much more quickly. And the Panzer Army, although was historically a hard luck outfit, it always gave as good as it got. There's divisions in there. And then the Germans have the two paratroop regiments that they initially used to drop into Tunisia, which further screwed up the Allied advance there. So it's both sides are attacking and defending ferociously in this thing. And then among the German army, among the Spanish army, there's 3 corps that remain loyal to the Axis because one was commanded by Suñer, the foreign minister. That starts in Madrid, and then the other 2 were the units that Franco had brought with him from North Africa, and so they knew that if the Republic were reestablished, they were dead men. So they stay low. But on the others, you roll a die, and so they can. There you go. There's the order of battle. They can defect. The Republican units are a little less strong than the Phalangist equivalent, because the idea is when an organization like that switches side, there's bound to be some equipment and manpower losses.
Right, and then it's the left side. We want to focus here on the left side. Is the Isabella counters on the right side? I believe it's the contact now.
Right, on the right side are the
markers you mentioned right here. Right,
totally worthless contact now units at this point. They will be valuable later on. The units are all one-sided. They're multi-step, but they're one-sided, and the game uses an alternating action system. That is, each turn the die is rolled to find out if your movement phase goes first or your combat phase. And then within that, I get the Allied player moves 1 unit, the German player moves 1 unit. And to make that very simple on the board, you flip it over, and the backside is blank. And so then you can tell who's been moved and who has not, and who has fought and who has not.
This is interesting. I haven't seen this effect before. A white background that also encompasses the unit scale. That's interesting art approach. I haven't seen that before that I can remember.
The little number behind the attack factor there, that's the
is that range?
Strength. Yeah,
that's the range. Okay,
right.
And is the game system similar to other games you've done, Ty? As like the fundamentals of the bones?
Yeah. If you saw my Vagram game earlier in that used an alternating action system.
Okay, gotcha.
And what I like about that is you make these plans, of course, and as the things are unfolding unit by unit, what your opponent is doing can distract you. And so you think, oh, he just landed a guy there, moved that division here, maybe I better react. And the trouble is, if that happens, and the victory goes to the guy who best plans his operations and then operates according to that plan.
Okay. Well, Billy, got any questions before I ask Ty something here? But I wanted to open it up
No,
to you guys.
you got it. Doing a
All
good
right.
job.
So I always like to ask Ty, every designer, as far as going through the design process of this game. I know obviously you know the history. You just proved that first 5 minutes tonight. But was there any particular design challenges or approaches that you sort of changed or refined? I'm just wondering if you look back at this design, you've done so many designs, but if you look back on this one, is there anything particularly that you thought, okay, that was maybe the toughest part I had to get through to make this thing sing the way I wanted it to? So,
Well, with this game, I had an experience that was somewhat like Proud Monster. That is, back when I was first working on Proud Monster, I was really wrestling with how to do this. And then just one night, like it sort of came to me in a dream. And the next day I woke up and it was like I had to race to get it out on paper before it disappeared. You know?
Ah, right. Okay.
Same thing here. Like I was reading the history, thinking, how do I want to do this? How do I want to do this? Woke up one day and it was, as if in a vision from the Lord. There it was, whole cloth. And again, it was a race to get it down on paper before I ever got it. So, no, once everything started to flow, it just came. There are designs where, it's like pulling teeth one at a time when you're trying to, and then you do something and, that won't work because of that.
Yeah.
It just all jumped into my head.
It just flowed. You just answered my other question, which was going to be what gave you the idea or the main inspiration to do this game? Because as you mentioned, hasn't been too much done on this what if topic. Other than Europa had a small scenario for it. And I don't know. I personally don't know of anything else done by any other publisher around this, to be honest. So just the Europa piece, obviously, because it's so big, they could do anything with that series. Right.
But my feeling is the only people who will be unhappy with the game, there are people who, when they play an alternative history game, very much resent the fact that they do not have a historical script to follow. That makes them nervous. They don't know what, like you play a Normandy game.
Where to land, the British, the approach to take.
Turn 4, 12th SS comes on this turn, and I should be breaking. I should take Saint-Lô this turn. When you play alternative history, you don't have that. You have your victory conditions. You go for it, And so I find there's about 25% of the audience out there that cannot stand that tension.
That's a good point. It's a really good point. Yeah, exactly.
But my advice is just wade in and go to banging.
All right. Well, we're excited. Issue 107. Again, it's part of the current. So we have a new subscription people can also sign up for now. But this is part of the I think the tail end of our current subscription. Looks like a great issue. Historical article is going to be great. I mean, I'll try to take the first 5 minutes as a YouTube clip and just provide that to everybody and add it to the Paper Wars page, because I think I was really impressed with that historical intro you gave. I mean, I didn't hear everything you said. It was too many facts that I could absorb in my wee brain.
There's a lot of wheels within wheels there.
Exactly. I could see. Yeah, exactly. Really more wheels than I have. More exactly.
Big opportunity here. You could have really screwed the Anglo Allies here really bad.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Ty. Billy, I'm going to close it with you before we let Ty go. But Ty, great job as always on Paper Wars.
Yeah, no, he's doing a great job on Paper Wars.
Exactly. The content.
We've got a lot of good stuff coming.
Glad to hear you say that. All right. Bomb out then.
All right. Thanks so much, Ty.
Okay,
really
appreciate
it.
Thanks for coming.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. That was a little bit, Billy, that was a little bit about Paper Wars 107, which will be coming in a little bit, not far from now. There's a wee little game ahead of it that's going to be released first, which rumors are it's now shipping out, perhaps even. I think somebody received it. I mean, it was an early shipment they received. I don't know. We'll find out. But just thought I'd turn it back to you guys. Is there anything you wanted to provide a quick update on? I don't know. I think the Kickstarter just ended that we had, and I think that went pretty well on that we had the Joe Carter design. The dog boats just ended recently, I believe. So we just wrapped up our Kickstarter.
So Hitler's Last Gamble is in the being mailed. Paper Wars 107 be out at the end of the month.
Yep. So that's why we want
one more in that subscription. I think it's a World War, the D-Day game in 108, and then that whole cycle ends. So
okay,
but we got a lot of good stuff. Ty does a great job. He has his own artist, Paul, that's just dedicated to Paper Wars, and they've got a lot of good stuff. I know Gregory Smith just gave him another game, Viking.
Yeah, Viking. Yeah,
19.
Yeah, I saw Ty. I think gave a preview of that on. I think I saw that.
A lot of good stuff coming up, and
yep. So the next one that's actually coming up is this little guy right here. So I had the unique pleasure to work with Danny and his incredible crew on The Last Gamble, which I think Ty referenced when 3W was Keith Poulter Poulter's last gamble, as Ty put it. So we're really excited about this release. And speaking of this release, let's bring on Danny Parker to our show. Danny, it's a real pleasure to see you again. I know we've run into each other quite a bit lately with Compass Expo a few times with the play testing and the crew. You have seeing Richard was great as well, and of course Bruno and others participating. But yeah, I just want to welcome Danny Parker to our town hall tonight. How you doing, Danny?
Great. It's great to be here. And actually, it's really perfect to have Ty lead off because, believe it or not, this is showing how old I am. But back in 1974, when he was editor for a publication called Panzerfaust, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Ty will agree. Yes, I was. And I sent him a letter because I was, like many of the people still following Compass games and other games in our hobby. I was following the Ardennes games, and I was already interested in this. And the article was called "Trouble in the Ardennes," and it premiered in 1974. And since then, it's been pretty much Battle of the Bulge year after year for me, and I guess it will be until the final year. But anyway.
No, that's great.
The Last Gamble hopefully is not the absolute end for me, but it's out there now, and Billy evidently is getting it out there because the first person reported receiving it today.
I saw that a few hours ago, so I go,
And they
maybe,
didn't complain about the weight of picking it up either. So, but anyway, it's a heavy thing.
Yeah, it weighs 8 pounds.
It weighs 8 pounds and change. It's a really heavy piece of game.
And I'd like to say we just appreciate the ability to work with you, Danny.
Yeah.
And you've done a great job, and it's just a pleasure to work with you and have this game come out and all the work you've done over the years and to get this game to where it is. So Compass wants to say thank you for letting us publish your game.
It's been terrific, and it is terrific because, for me, this has always been just fun. And, for you and Billy, you're running a business and you want to make sure that business works okay. But for me, I'm able to do something that's really fun. And then we're still going to make money and we're still going to make people happy because The Last Gamble, if you're interested in history, if you're just interested in games, only games, then maybe you don't care. But if you're interested in history and games, and you're interested in the Battle of the Bulge, you're going to say, yeah, I'm happy with this.
Oh, yeah, this is like a true study / simulation, which is right up my alley. I mean, this is going to be awesome. And before we jump into Last Gamble, the game proper, since we talked about Paper Wars 107, it has your article, fairly lengthy article in it. Could you tell us a little bit? Could you help us wrap up Paper Wars 107 about the article you did in that issue that we just covered?
I'm glad you brought that up because I was hoping you could actually show the first page of it.
I'm sorry, I don't have it handy. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the contents.
That's worth having.
Okay.
Because the article, it features a bunch of experimental rules for the game.
Oh, okay.
And they're ones that, they've not been play tested, but they sure are interesting. And I recommend if you're interested in this stuff, that you get a copy of that. And Ty has got, I think he posted on Facebook. It's pretty easy to, even if you don't have a subscription, you can buy that issue. And then plus Isabella sounds like a really interesting game too, right? And then a lot of people have pointed to, relative to World War II, the fact that Hitler didn't go after Gibraltar was a huge deal. And so, this allows you to look into that. But anyway.
Good hat tip on 107 then. That's a key article. Now, were these experimental rules brought on more because for historicity, historical detail, or more for play balance? If you have to pick
no, not play balance. They're brought on because they're going to show you some additional detail on the historical side that you can get involved with if you want. For instance, there's, if you're interested in oddball units, and a lot of people that are interested in Bulge games are, there's some oddball units in there. For instance, there was a U.S. air unit that had the first special rockets that were designed for ground support. They're called Holy Moses rockets, and that was run by the 406th fighter group. And anyway, we have that unit singled out in the game. And then another German unit,
Mhm.
a Schlachterschwader 4, that was designed for ground attack, and it was in the Ardennes. It was one of the few air units that was able to penetrate deep into the salient when the umbrella of Allied air power was there. But anyway, so
Bill,
the article,
do you have that page, Bill, handy? Were you showing it a second ago, Bill? Do you have that
Yeah, I
page,
packed it up.
Paper Wars handy? I'm gonna hold
Do it
on, Danny.
again.
I think Bill may have had the page. So here's so that's the
Yeah.
first page. Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
so-
So, last
so-
gamble on the last gamble, new features.
so and it's got a favorite quote of mine: "In God we trust; all others should bring data." So I think,
And God we trust, all others should bring data. There we go.
right. So
Perfect, perfect.
one of the things about Last Gamble is that a Battle of the Bulge game can't really be new in terms of the subject. But
Right.
The Last Gamble is new in terms of everything in it has been examined out the yin yang.
Yeah.
And that means that every bit of information and correction in terms of detail, historicity, uh, questions, all these things have been really examined, and some really special things have been added. One of them is morale for all units, and this is a big deal because you'll find out in the game that even though the airborne units don't have a very large combat rating, they turn out to be very difficult. The U.S. Airborne units are very difficult to push off because they have morale only equaled by a few German units, like for instance, the First SS or the Führer-Begleit Brigade. So then there are units that are strong in terms of the material and the equipment and the number of people, but they're not very good in terms of the morale of the units. So it turns out that these things become important in the game, and you learn something. And then speaking of oddball units, if you look at the upper right, you see this unit that I just had a little article on Facebook on what is this thing. It looks like it's hauling a trailer, a
Yes.
British tank hauling a trailer, and there's the flames. So someone said, "Oh, is it a dumpster fire? Is it hauling a dumpster fire?" No, it's a flamethrower unit with
Wow.
the 5 and 4 Yeomanry Squadron B that actually fought with the U.S. Second Armored Division. It's the only British unit that can fight with the U.S. units, and it did from November on. It fought with the U.S. Second Armored Division because it turned out that the flamethrower units were very handy if you had built up resistance and you wanted to make sure you could that resistance to capitulate or surrender. And so anyway, that's in the game, and there's a lot of other oddball units. For instance, on the there are jets in the game. There are leaders in the game. They're all rated, and
Like you talked about
everything's
the air
been-
game. I saw a post you did on Facebook about the air game.
the air game is
or the,
it's
yeah,
a
air
big
command.
deal when the air matters, but one of the things, if you're really interested in the ground game that's famous, you won't have to worry about the air game much until the weather clears. But there's a complete one map scenario in this game
Yes.
that we really emphasized. We really wanted this because a lot of the gamers like myself were older, and we want to be able to play something that's not going to take days to play. And so we have the Battle Before the Meuse scenario, which takes place out near the Meuse River with the Germans trying to cross, and that little flamethrower unit's involved in that too.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, but the air units are involved in a big way because the air clears like 2 turns into that scenario, and then the air battle matters. And but the thing about this one map scenario is it's only a few turns, and you can finish it in a single sitting. And we worked on the play balance on this thing, and heaven knows if we have it exactly right. But it's certainly one of those where it's a tense contest. And then you're showing off a segment of the map that I can point out something to. Like if you look at Tillier Sarang, you see a question mark on the bridge above it, and that's because you don't know if that bridge is there or not. And
You have to roll
and so
for it, huh?
you don't know if that bridge is there or not. And so, in actuality, that particular bridge was not there. And so,
Oh,
when you attempt to cross, you get there. You can find out when you're next to it whether the bridge is there or not. And if you're the German player, you have these commandos running around if you decide to have the optional rule, and that gives them something to do other than trying to be annoying to the Allied player in terms of trying to aid combat, which they don't
right.
do very well, or trying to mislead units and send them the wrong direction, which they don't do very well. But they're very good about
Yeah.
checking the status of bridges. And
Um,
so,
yeah, I
anyway,
was a quick question. I think now's an opportune time. Can you talk about the level of detail that went into the map train analysis? So we're looking here, what we're seeing here, and how the
well,
placement of the map elements, and how you came about with the quality of the map itself. I think that's worth the price of admission to your game. But I'd
well,
like you to talk about what went into that.
the hexes are 2 miles across, so that's conventional. But there's really each hex was scrutinized in terms of what's there, and there's some really unusual elements. You see the cross hatching near the rivers, and this is called severe terrain, and it indicates that there's heavy contours going down to the river, and that means that this these heavy contours can't be crossed by mechanized unit or motorized units
Hmm.
without a bridge or a road,
Right.
and infantry can cross them. And then also zones of control don't necessarily extend across them if they're a
Right.
river in particular. And at night, the zones of controls across severe terrain hexes are there's another. They vary depending on whether it's day or night because these are heavily incised. It's a heavily incised terrain feature, which may not be the most popular thing in the game because one of the things that people playing the game are going to find is that this thing is not just an easy thing to move because
Right.
you pay additional cost to go into the hex. There's some hexes you just can't go into.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the hexes that you were just showing, John,
Okay.
if you
Sure.
would
Sorry about that.
go back to them. I just wanted to point out something else. You see the hex that's called Kinkenpoise. This was a rail yard south of Liège, and it had millions of gallons of gasoline there, and the Germans knew it was there, and they had a V1 campaign that was trying to see if they could blow it up.
Mm.
And in the game, you try to do that too. You have these, V1 robot bombardment happening in the game, and every turn you get to attempt to try to hit those fuel dumps. And you will say, well, how did the Germans know that they were there? Well, there were a lot of V-Leute spies that they had that were behind the lines that knew, and it was, it's very hard to hide 10 million gallons of gasoline
Right.
in a rail yard. And there's a good picture of it in the game booklet that you can see. But anyway, it's a massive collection of rail fuel cars. So anyway, it was there, and it was also it was an important place because the Americans in the game are trying to evacuate the fuel that's in danger of being captured by the Germans,
Sure. Yeah.
trying to get it back there. And of course, the Germans are trying to close in on this. And one of the questions that people seem to talk about these days is, if the Germans capture Liège, why do you make it so that the Germans have won a tactical victory? Because it wasn't part of their victory, what they were looking for
Mhm.
victory. It's because of the fuel and the supply that was located there. If
Yeah, isn't in most
that,
games it's like a strategic victory if they reach Liege? I mean, in typical bolds
well, it's
games.
certainly a tactical victory.
Yeah.
One can argue whether it's strategic or not. Strategic, in some sense, you're trying to get to Antwerp, and someone correctly observed that since none of these games have Antwerp on the map, it must be pretty hard. So, and the answer is yes. It's almost impossible to accomplish that. But of course, we want to try to still steer the German players so that they're trying to accomplish
Right.
what the actual combatants were trying to do in the situation. I did see a comment that someone said, "Well, no minimum movement across these severe terrain hexes." Well, actually, if you have an infantry unit, you can cross the severe terrain hexes. It's not fast without a road, but you can cross them. But if you have a motorized unit that's like tanks that are stuck on the wrong side of a river next to a severe terrain hex and there's nobody on the other side, no, you can't cross that because you couldn't. There's no way to do it. And so you can think, well, I don't like a game where you make it impossible to have minimum movement across that. Well, in this game, we say that's too bad. You can't do that because you couldn't. When Piper was stuck, when Piper was stuck in La Glaise, Dumont, in that area, they would have liked to have had minimum movement to try to get out of there, and there was no way because there was no way to cross this kind of highly incised terrain with waterways and try to. Well, you could do it with.
Yeah.
He did it by just leaving the tanks behind, which
Yeah.
is the unit was eliminated, right? So that's
Exactly.
what we would say.
Now,
But
this
anyway,
this is just
uh,
a single map though. And it's nice. It's like a mini map. It's not a full
yeah,
size huge, but it's a great way to break into the system, like you said, and have some of those special units involved. But I want to show. I have to take a
yes,
moment
go
here.
ahead.
I want to show the full 2 map. Now this is the game, capital THE, the game. So here again, as I zoom in, you can see how the depth of this. This is 2 full size maps here. Is what we got going on here. There's multiple. I think what is it? 4 2-map scenarios, and then of course you got the campaign game. I
Yeah,
think
there's a variety of 2 map scenarios. There's a
yeah,
bunch of variants too.
yeah,
If so you can. It's a package where you can alter the game, and but yet even with a campaign game, you can play this thing and to completion. It will take a while to do.
sure,
It is a fairly complex game. It's not a simple game.
sure.
Moving it will probably be for players learning to play the game. You're learning to move is probably for motorized units is probably going to be the challenge. So you'll find out, the Ardennes is not a desert, so your tanks can't just roll over the Americans, even though they're quite thin in that
Yeah,
space. You still, they're the reason the Americans didn't think the Germans would try to come through. It would be insane to try to come through here in winter and mud, but they did. And so, as a German player, you have you have all these really strong tank units and really, good-looking armored units, and say, well, I want to move these things right up to and then you find out, well, there's trouble with road space. There's trouble with trying to stack on the roads. There's trouble with the forest
oh,
hexes,
that's the
so
segue. Yeah, that's the segue I want to
yeah,
go to. I
yeah, go
love Mo's
ahead.
comment here. Movement is not easy in this game. It's a bitch. So I saw this at Compass Expo because you really have a detailed methodology and approach to how movement. You really have to manage those roadways and the traffic at all times during movement. So I think Mo captures the sentiment of everybody that's playing this game. It's like, oh, there's so much. You really have to manage the road networks and the movement in the game.
Yeah, and the reason it's that way, folks, is because it shows you how it was.
Yep.
And so you find out that the reason the Germans were frustrated with traffic was because it was inevitable with the way the terrain was and the amount of force that they had brought up. Yeah, they had secretly brought up a huge collection of men, vehicles, armor, artillery, and so forth. The trouble was the road net wasn't that great, and the weather wasn't good, and you try to get all this stuff on roads, and then even though you have not very strong U.S. units, they're still in the way, and you can only bring so much up so fast. So, but there are ways to I'm not going to say cheat because it's not cheating, but there are
Yeah.
clever ways to exploit the terrain, and one of them is called march movement, where infantry, if it's not opposed, it can actually get going in this kind of terrain and do fairly well moving.
So
And then I saw Mo was out there describing the movement in this game, but he's just before putting out a how to play series
That's
that
right.
we've already
Video.
completed
Yep.
for the game, and
Yep.
so he's going to make that go live for you all soon
Yep.
because the game's going to start showing up in the next few days.
Yeah,
So,
it's starting to show up
and
now. So
thanks,
we have some
Billy, for
questions.
getting that done.
Yeah, we have some questions for you, which is great. So
Yeah,
Neil's
go
asking
ahead.
this question, and he's going back to your Dark December game that was released by OSG. Wants to know, based on the variety that was so much fun to play in Dark December, can you touch upon, is there some variety? Well, I know there's a lot of variety in the game, but I don't know if there's ones you want to call out in particular that are your most
Well,
fond of.
yeah. As I mentioned, there are a lot of variants, but I'm happy that Neil brought this up because I was talking to the developer Rich Hoffman, who's really
Yep.
been an integral part of making this thing come alive. But we wanted to put humor, since this is a fairly complicated game, it's fairly involved. We actually have humor in the game, so there are actually funny things in the game, like the V1 campaign. I mean, it's sometimes you wonder, the Germans were hoping, or Hitler was hoping, I'll be able to equal the Allied air power by just having this robot bomb bombardment. And then when you're actually doing it, you're wondering, like, who is this really helping? Is it helping the Germans or not? Because it's kind of a pain for both in some ways, because they don't land necessarily where you want them to. And there are other odd things, like, for instance, when the German parachute operation happens, the Germans jump with radios. They brought 4 members of the 12th SS Division with them who were afraid to jump out of the airplane. They brought a radio that they were going to use to radio back the positions of the American units trying to close in on them behind the lines, and then have rail guns fire on the Americans. The trouble was the inexperienced jumpers weren't able to protect the radio properly, and it was smashed in the jump. But in the game, it's possible the radio might survive. And so when you jump, not only do you roll to see where the parachutists, how they land and where they land because they scatter, but you also find out whether the radio survives. And so there's all these unusual nuances to the game that are kind of interesting. Same thing with which bridge discovery, the question marks.
Yeah.
So there's elements of this that are kind of, in some ways, they're funny, and so we felt that was important to have some kind of comic relief in some fashion, and that when you're doing something like this, you want to have historical elements, but you also want to have fun, because that's what the hobby's about.
That
We're
makes
playing
sense.
games. Go ahead,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah, here's a great question from Jonathan on Facebook. Glad to have some folks on Facebook tonight. Can we talk about, I think, the difference if you were going to compare the Compass Edition here, that's now shipping live, versus the 3W version. I don't know if that's going to be difficult, I think, because everything's
that's a
sort of
good
new.
question,
Everything's new
Jonathan.
and different, right? How would you answer Jonathan on that question? I think it's a fair question, but I'm not sure how you want to answer that.
So how would you compare, I don't know, a modern automobile to a Model T? Or, I don't know. So it's everything has been reevaluated in this game. It's more of a new game than it is the legacy game. I mean, most of the things in the legacy game, there are some of them that you'll still find because I think that they're correct. For instance, the reserve system in the movement and combat. When you move, before you move, you decide whether units are going to be in reserve, they're going to be in combat reserve ready to engage the enemy, or they're going to be an exploitation reserve, or they're just going to go fight. And this is something that survived from the legacy game, and because it works extremely well, and it helps illustrate for players why units were placed in reserve in the first place. So, but the fundamental answer would be, things are so different in this game. It's a new game, so there are things that are here from the legacy game. And when I saw Bill at Expo last November, he told me, he confessed that he wasn't sure I would ever finish this, and I told him that not only was it finished, he had brought a sample from China. We were going to play it, but it's we examined every single element in the game. I mean, critically, and a lot of things are changed. So more things are different than there are the same. So I don't know if that helps you, Jonathan, but it's a completely new game largely.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point to make about the game. It really is a completely new game. Billy, did you have wanted to turn things over to you just to see if you had any questions or
No,
comments for
again,
Danny?
I'll
Thank you.
say it again. It was a pleasure having Danny trust us with the game. Okay, and it's a pleasure. My God, I've been talking to Danny over on and off over the years for a lot of years,
Sure.
and
It's been
he's put a lot
7.
of he's been put a lot of effort into this game, and it shows. And I just want to say, from the Compass team, we like
Yeah.
working with you, the developer. It's been a great thing, and I think people are going to enjoy the game.
Yeah. So, I apologize to those people out there and say, oh, damn, another Bulge game. But
Oh
see,
no,
all I do,
this is
and
the
so
Bulge
so
game.
please have some sympathy for me relative to that. But it is, if you're interested in the Bulge or the Ardennes Offensive, it's a resource in every way, and also you can play the thing and it plays well, and it'll teach you too. It'll teach you stuff, and as I mentioned, there's comic relief in it, so that there's things that are a bit funny, and I think it really has succeeded, and a lot of that is due to uh, the developer Rich Hoffman, as well as my historical digger Andrew Dulecki, who found all kinds of weird things. Which is, did you know that 85% of the bridges across the Meuse River were already blown and they weren't there? So this sort of thing, that. So we have some really unique things in it, and I really appreciate Compass
Oh.
helping me to bring it to the public.
Oh, we have some great support for the game too. So on our learning library, which is one of the just to show you where it's available under resources, you want to select learning library, which Maurice Fitzgerald delivers for us all the production, all the hard work he does, doing the shoot, the editing, the production, which is hours and hours. So the latest we just dropped it, is Last Gamble right here. So you just click and it will take you to the YouTube video with Rich. I believe it's with Rich Hoffman, right? Yeah, with Rich Hoffman, the developer. So he'll very good to have that as people receive the game. Definitely check out that learning library, learn to play video. And thanks to Mo for doing that, and for Richard for Rich for stepping up and helping shoot that. So just wanted to make sure everybody knew that was available.
Yeah, that's great. And I hope to see those who might be at Compass Expo this November.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. I got your list of seminars or things you'd like to do. So yeah, for those,
and
please.
we're gonna
Yep.
play some
Yep.
we're gonna get some games of the Last Gamble going, and we're gonna play
Yep.
the unheralded high watermark 22 December scenario, which is, don't miss it. It's a great full map scenario of the whole shooting match at the height of the Bulge, and even though it's a bear to set up, once you've got it set up, it plays quickly. So anyway.
Well, Danny, thank you for all the amazing things you've done, the enjoyment of the hobby with all your different titles, and then of course all your books. I think there's a new book you got coming out.
Yeah, they wanted me to finish it, so it's done.
Okay, so we can find you everywhere. We got you on our game shelves, on our bookshelves, and
Well, this has been a real thing too. I wanted to really get this done and bring it to the hobby, because the hobby's been good to me, and I really wanted to make sure that I let everybody know, and that I got the best information I could on the Battle of the Bulge and the Ardennes Offensive in your hands, so that you can learn and enjoy it playing. So please do that.
I think a lot of people are not hitting the one button; they're hitting the two purchase option button, getting 2 copies of your game, because it's such a watershed game coming out. Just all the work people say, I want it just for the map, I want it just for the historical summary, the historical articles you've got in the box of the game, and then of course there's Paper Wars with more, and there's stuff everywhere.
If you're
amazing.
interested in the Bulge, it's a resource. So
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely, a resource you can play.
Exactly. Well, thank
So,
you again, Danny. It's a
thanks,
pleasure
guys.
to
Really
have worked with
appreciate
you.
it.
All right, you take care, Danny. Thank you
Take
so
care.
much for joining us.
Bye.
Well, there's quite the there's quite the person knowing the Bulge right there.
Well, that was a good show.
Well, no, that was great, and so excited to hear the game shipping. And
Last gamble.
What?
Last gamble tonight.
Yeah.
So let me see if there. I think somebody actually had a question for me a few days ago, Bill. So I'll just throw it out there. Somebody asked, "Is there going to be a new version done of South China Sea? A new? I don't know if it's even still in print. I haven't had time to
No,
check.
it's still in print.
It's still in print. Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay, so that was a question. So I hope I had the right title, South China Sea. I think that's the one he was asking about. Okay. So yeah, I don't think there's any questions. I think, with the format of the show, I think that pretty much covered. Oh, somebody asked about Roma Victrix, what the status of Roma Victrix is.
Yeah, it's it's at the printers.
All right, it's at the printer. So there we go. So yeah, I think that covers everything. Let me make sure. Yep. Yeah, I think that's it. So we got it covered. So I want to go to. I want to cover anything else before we go to the door prizes.
No, I think we're set.
All right, let me pull up the. All right, so what are we giving away, Billy?
Last gamble.
We are giving away the last gamble. So can I put my name in 10 times in the hat for this one? All right, probably not. Probably can't do that. All right, so I'm going to wait just a minute. So we want everybody to please get in your hashtag town hall. So please make sure you do that. This is a very important, momentous drawing. This is quite the game. 8 pounds. I think it came in at 8 pounds, more than what I weighed when I was born. So this is quite the baby here that you want to. So I'm going to give it a second more to make sure you guys get in your hashtag town hall for the drawing tonight. Thanks again for joining us. We really appreciate having you here again. And okay, I think I've given everybody a chance to get their tallies in. So let's see who wins Danny Parker's last gamble. So good luck to everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hope you enjoyed the format of tonight's show with 2 designers. And the winner is, don't know who this is.
I don't know who this is.
On YouTube channel Gamer8567. I have no clue who that could be. I have no clue who that is. So I have to say here, the winner, somehow take a screenshot of your profile page on YouTube, because there's going to be a lot of competition here. Take a screenshot of your account that shows Gamer8567 with your real identity and get it to sales@compassgames.com so we can match you up. And there you go. It's you. What's your name? There you are right there. All we need is your name, so we know who you are. And
That's funny.
if he can release it, I don't know if he wants to release his name on the. Well, anyway, you can email. Yeah, it'd be nice to know your name here, just so we don't make sure nobody else emails pretending they're you. So, but I'll leave it up to you if you want to do that. If you want to post your name on here, I don't think I see a name yet. Let's see here. I think he's fainted because he won. So it might be hard for him to type right now because he just took the big prize for tonight. So I'll leave it open a little bit. I'll leave the channel open for a little bit, and even I think that the comments will stay open after this live broadcast. So congratulations again for winning Gamer8567. That is quite the YouTube tag, I must say. And been trying to win for years. I'm very excited to hear that. That's wonderful. So
I said he's got the
and he's got screenshots. There we go. So very smart. Don't give away your private identity in such a public place like this, right? So good. Yeah. Okay, so you're all good. So he'll reach out to sales@compassgames.com. So so again, it was really a pleasure to have Ty Bomba and Danny Parker, sort of a 1-2 punch tonight, if you will. So obviously we'll have a lot more questions in 2 weeks. When we get together again, we'll be able to cover a lot of questions for Compass Games. And with that, Bill and Billy, I'll turn it over to you guys to help wrap things up tonight.
Another good show. Quiet from Dad.
Yeah, no, it was a good show. I liked it.
Yeah.
Now, did you learn about Operation Isabella? Did you learn? I mean, I learned.
I like the format. I didn't know about all that.
Oh my gosh, I had no history on that. So.
Yeah, no, it was a good show, and we'll bring more when we get designers who we can bring on, and
next.
Yeah, I think it adds to the variety, so you never know what you're going to get.
All right,
it's going to be a surprise, but have a great one. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right, everybody make sure you get Paper Wars 107. If you don't have a subscription, at least get that issue, and you need to hit the 2 buy button. 2 copies of The Last Gamble. Make sure you do that. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Okay, have a good night.